Tuesday, 11:47 p.m. Devin Carter's hands moved across the industrial vacuum in steady, practiced arcs. The machine's hum, a familiar companion in the empty silence of Cross Industries' 47th floor. At 38, he'd perfected the rhythm of invisible work, the kind that kept buildings running while their occupants slept, the kind that paid $18 an hour and asked nothing but consistency. His second shift of the day, his shoulders carried the particular ache of a man who'd started at 7 that morning in maintenance coveralls, fixing broken HVAC units and replacing flickering fluorescents, and would end at 6 tomorrow morning pushing this suit vacuum across 12 more floors. The corner office door stood ajar, light spilling into the hallway like a violation of the building's after-hours darkness. Devin paused, killed the vacuum. Corporate executives didn't work past 9 unless something had gone catastrophically wrong, and in 5 years of night cleaning, he'd learned that other people's catastrophes were best left undisturbed. But then he heard it, a sound so raw it stripped away every professional boundary he'd built. Someone was crying, not the delicate tears of frustration or disappointment. This was the kind of crying that came from foundations cracking, from structures collapsing inward. He knocked twice on the doorframe. The woman inside jerked her head up, mascara tracking down her face in dark rivers, her designer suit rumpled in ways that probably cost more than Devin's monthly rent. Victoria Cross. He knew her face from the employee newsletter, from the brass nameplate outside this office, from the oil painting in the lobby downstairs. CEO, 40 years old, the kind of powerful that made men like Devin functionally invisible. She wiped at her face with the back of her hand, a gesture so unpolished it seemed to surprise her. "I'm fine. Leave." Devin's eyes caught the framed photograph on her desk, a little boy, maybe 6, with Victoria's sharp features softened by childhood. The boy wore a medical alert bracelet, the kind Devin recognized because his own daughter had 3 of them in different colors for different occasions. Next to the photo, Victoria's phone screen glowed with an email subject line, "Emergency custody hearing, Monday 9 a.m. "Your son, he okay?" Victoria's armor cracked wider. Her voice came out strangled, each word fighting its way past whatever pride kept executives upright. "His nanny quit, tonight, middle of custody hearing week. The nanny who knows his medication schedule, his triggers, his routines. She walked out 4 hours ago and I have 8 agency rejections in my inbox, and my ex-fiance's lawyer will use this to prove I'm an unfit mother who can't maintain basic childcare stability." She pressed her palms against her eyes like she could force the tears back through sheer will. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped to something closer to confession than complaint. "I have a board meeting at 8 tomorrow morning, a merger presentation that determines whether this company survives the next fiscal year. I can't cancel it, I can't reschedule it, and I can't bring my 6-year-old son to work because I couldn't keep a nanny for more than 3 months. Devin's mind performed calculations it had no business performing. Live-in nanny pay ran somewhere around $4,000 a month. He'd Googled it once during a particularly desperate 3 a.m. when Zara's hospital bills had looked insurmountable. 2 weeks would be roughly $2,000. $2,000 would cover Zara's cardiologist appointment on May 15th, with enough left over for 2 months of her medications. 2,000 was exactly the number that had been burning a hole in his sleep for the past 6 weeks. The words came out before his rational mind could stop them. "I'll do it." Victoria blinked, her tear-streaked face shifting from grief to confusion. "Excuse me? Watch your son, tonight, tomorrow. However long you need until you can find someone permanent. 2 weeks, you said? Through the custody hearing? I can do that. $2,000. She stared at him like he'd suggested something obscene. Her eyes traveled over his janitorial uniform, his worn work boots, the ID badge clipped to his belt that identified him as maintenance and custodial, night shift. "You're the janitor." I'm a single father with a 7-year-old daughter who has a congenital heart condition. I know CPR, basic first aid, and how to read a medication schedule without killing anybody. I can cook actual meals, not just microwave dinners. I've been managing a special needs child solo for 3 years. You need someone tonight. I need the money. We can help each other. Victoria sat back in her chair, something shifting in her expression from dismissal to assessment. The CEO brain visibly engaging, weighing risks and variables with the same calculation Devon had just performed. Background check, references, criminal history, I need all of it by noon tomorrow. Devon pulled out his phone, fingers moving through saved files with the efficiency of someone who'd prepared for this exact scenario even though he'd never imagined it would happen. He turned the screen toward her, showing a folder labeled Employment Documents. Already compiled. Background check from my current employer, 5 years at Cross Industries with perfect attendance record. Criminal record search from when I volunteered at my daughter's school. 3 professional references and 2 personal ones. CPR certification renewed 6 months ago. Send them to yourself. Victoria took his phone, her perfectly manicured fingers looking absurd against his cracked screen protector. She forwarded the entire folder to her email, her expression never quite losing that sharp-edged assessment. When she handed the phone back, her eyes met his with the kind of directness that probably made board members squirm. Why would you do this? You don't know me. You don't know my son. This could be a disaster for both of us. Devon thought about the spreadsheet open on his laptop at home, the one that tracked every dollar against every debt, the one where Zara's upcoming appointment sat circled in red like a deadline he couldn't miss. He thought about Simone's hospital bracelet in the drawer by his bed, about the promise he'd whispered to her 3 years ago while machines beeped their final countdowns. I'll take care of our girl no matter what. Because I know what it's like to be a single parent who's desperate for help that isn't coming. Someone helped me when my wife died and I had a newborn with medical complications and no idea how to manage any of it. I'm paying it forward. Victoria's face did something complicated, a flash of grief recognition maybe, or respect. She stood, smoothing her suit like she could restore order through force of will. $25 an hour. That's what I'd pay an agency. 2 weeks. Roughly 200 hours allowing for sleep. 5,000. Deal is 2,000. Your original desperation math was probably closer to accurate. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's market rate. Devon's voice came out harder than he intended. Ma'am, with respect, you don't get to decide what's charity and what isn't when I'm the one accepting the money. 2,000 is what I need, that's the deal. She studied him for a long moment and Devon watched her recalibrate again. Most people in her world probably didn't refuse more money. Most people in her world probably didn't understand that accepting more than you needed was its own kind of debt. 2,000. Plus you fund my daughter's cardiology appointment on May 15th. Insurance doesn't cover the specialist consult. Out-of-pocket cost is $3,200. Victoria's eyebrow lifted. That's $5,200 total. That's 2,000 wages for earned work, plus 3,200 medical coverage as part of the employment benefit package. Different categories. One I'm earning, one you're providing as my temporary employer. Dignity intact on both sides. Something that might have been a smile ghosted across Victoria's face. You negotiate like someone who's thought about this before. I've thought about everything before, ma'am. When you're one paycheck from catastrophe, you think about every possible angle. All the time. She extended her hand. Devon shook it, her grip surprisingly strong, her skin soft in ways that spoke of lotions he couldn't name and a life he couldn't imagine. Be here at 7 tomorrow morning. Bring your daughter. We'll do a trial day. If my son accepts you, if you can handle the routine, we'll formalize the arrangement. Yes, ma'am. Devon left the office, vacuum forgotten in the hallway, his hands shaking as he pulled out his phone and set an alarm for 5:30 a.m. 3 hours of sleep if he finished his shift fast, showered faster, and didn't waste time on breakfast. He could do 3 hours. He'd done worse. The apartment was dark when he got home at 6:15 Wednesday morning, but light glowed under Zara's door. She'd been scared of complete darkness since the hospital stay 2 years ago, when her heart monitor had malfunctioned in the middle of the night. Devon eased her door open and found her asleep on top of her covers, still wearing yesterday's school clothes, a half-finished drawing on the floor beside her bed. He picked up the drawing carefully. Zara's art always told him things she couldn't say out loud. This one showed two figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a sky full of hearts. The tall figure had tears on its face. The small one had a smile. Devon folded the drawing and tucked it into his wallet, next to the photo of Simone from their wedding day. Then he picked up Zara carefully, got her into pajamas without quite waking her, and tucked her properly into bed. Her pulse monitor beeped softly on her nightstand, the rhythm steady and strong, 92 beats per minute. Good, normal, safe. He had 90 minutes before he needed to wake her. 90 minutes to figure out how to explain that their entire life was about to change for 2 weeks, maybe longer, and that he was asking her to trust him one more time on a decision that looked insane from the outside but felt like the only option that made any sense. Devon didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, staring at the financial spreadsheet he'd maintained since Simone's diagnosis. The numbers never changed just because you looked at them more. $47,000 in medical debt from Simone's cancer treatment, her experimental therapies, her final months in hospice. $3,200 for Zara's upcoming cardiology consult. $1,800 monthly expenses for rent, utilities, food. Current savings, $3,100. Current monthly income from both jobs, $4,200. Current monthly shortfall after debt payments, $680. The math was simple. Without the $2,000 from Victoria, he'd miss Zara's appointment. With it, they'd have breathing room for the first time since Simone's funeral. But accepting the job meant exposing Zara to a stranger's world, meant gambling his daughter's routine on a desperate CEO's temporary crisis, meant trusting that he could actually do this impossible thing he'd promised to do. Simone's voice in his head, warm and certain even 3 years gone. You're already doing impossible things, Dev. You just call them Tuesday. At 5:30, his alarm went off. Devon made coffee, checked Zara's medication schedule on the refrigerator chart, and laid out her morning pills next to a glass of water. At 5:45, he woke her gently, hands on her shoulders, voice soft. Morning, baby girl. Need you to wake up for me. Zara's eyes opened slowly, her face scrunching in that particular way that meant she'd registered it was still dark outside and therefore this was a betrayal of natural order. Daddy, is it Saturday? It's Wednesday, but we've got a special day today. Remember how I told you Daddy sometimes has to take extra work to help pay for your doctor visits? Zara sat up, her 7-year-old brain engaging faster than most adults he knew. She reached for her pills automatically, swallowed them with practiced efficiency, and fixed him with eyes that were too knowing. What kind of extra work? There's a lady who needs help watching her little boy for a couple weeks. He's about your age, maybe a little younger. Has some medical stuff too. Asthma, some anxiety. I told her I could help, but it means you'd come with me. We'd stay at her place during the week, come home on weekends. It's temporary, just until she finds someone permanent. Zara processed this with the seriousness she brought to everything. Is the lady nice? I think she's learning how to be nice. Sometimes grown-ups forget. Is the boy nice? Don't know yet. That's what today is for, meeting them, seeing if it works. Zara pulled her knees to her chest, her heart monitor beeping its steady rhythm. If I don't like it, can we leave? Devon felt something crack open in his chest. His daughter shouldn't have to worry about whether her father's decisions would trap her somewhere unsafe. She shouldn't have to negotiate her own comfort at 7 years old. But this was the world they lived in, and Zara had learned early that her voice mattered in the decisions that shaped her life. If you don't like it, we leave. No questions, no guilt. Your safety and happiness come first, always. Zara nodded slowly. Okay, can I bring my drawings? Bring whatever makes you feel safe, baby. By 6:45, they were both dressed. Zara in her favorite purple dress with the 2 short sleeves she refused to give up. Devin in the cleanest jeans he owned and a button-down shirt that had seen better days but still looked presentable. Zara's emergency bag sat by the door, medications, pulse oximeter, her inhaler even though the asthma was Jasper's problem, not hers. A juice box and granola bar for low blood sugar episodes. Devin's own bag held extra clothes, his laptop, and the folder of documentation Victoria had already received digitally, but might want to see in physical form. People like Victoria Cross probably preferred paper trails. The drive to her building took 20 minutes in early morning traffic, the city still waking up, the sky that particular shade of gray that promised rain later. Devin had driven past this building 1,000 times on his way to the industrial park where Cross Industries' operational headquarters sat, but he'd never been inside the residential tower that rose above the commercial floors. The lobby gleamed with marble and brass, a doorman in an actual uniform who looked at Devin's 20-year-old Honda like it had personally offended him. Devin took Zara's hand and walked past the doorman with his head up, shoulders back, the posture Simone used to call his "I belong here even when I don't" stance. The elevator required a key card for the residential floors. Devin texted Victoria, "Here, need access." The response came back immediately. Told doorman to issue temp card, penthouse level. The doorman, when Devin approached him, barely concealed his distaste but produced a plastic card from behind his desk. "Miss Cross is expecting you. Penthouse elevator is on the left. This card is good for 48 hours. After that, you'll need clearance from building management." "Appreciate it." The elevator had mirrors on 3 walls and a small chandelier overhead. Zara stared at their reflection, at the way they looked small and out of place in all that polish. "Daddy, are rich people different than us? They have more money. That's the only difference that matters. Everything else is just packaging." The elevator doors opened directly into Victoria's penthouse. Not a hallway, not a vestibule. Straight into a living space that probably cost more than Devin would earn in his lifetime. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, furniture arranged with the kind of precision that suggested a professional decorator. Art on the walls that might have been prints or might have been originals worth more than medical school tuition. Everything was white or cream or pale gray. Nothing bright, nothing warm, nothing that suggested actual humans lived here. Victoria appeared from a doorway to the left, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a different suit that probably came from the same designer as yesterday's. Behind her, a small boy peered around her legs, his face pale, his breathing audible even from across the room. The slight wheeze of asthma not quite controlled. "Mr. Carter, thank you for being punctual." Victoria's voice had returned to CEO mode. All business, no trace of last night's breakdown. "This is my son, Jasper." Devin knelt down to Jasper's eye level, making himself smaller, less threatening. "Hey, buddy, I'm Devin. This is my daughter, Zara." Jasper didn't speak, just studied them with eyes that looked too old for 6. Zara, bless her heart, took the initiative. She stepped forward and held out her hand like she was meeting another adult. "I have a bad heart. What's wrong with you?" Jasper's eyes went wide, but something in Zara's blunt honesty seemed to unlock him. "Asthma, and I get scared a lot." "Me too. Scared, I mean. Want to see my scar?" Zara pulled down the collar of her dress to reveal the thin pink line running down her sternum, the surgical scar from her valve repair 2 years ago. They had to fix my heart so the blood goes the right way. Jasper's fear transformed into fascination. He stepped out from behind Victoria, his wheezing quieter. Does it hurt? Not anymore. Mostly it just looks cool. Devon caught Victoria's expression, something between shock and relief, like she'd expected this to go worse and didn't quite know how to handle it going well. He stood up, kept his voice low. Kids are better at this stuff than adults. They're honest about what's broken. Victoria's throat worked. I have to leave for the office in 10 minutes. His medication schedule is on the refrigerator. Breakfast is usually oatmeal or eggs, nothing with too much sugar. He has occupational therapy at noon. The address is in my phone. I'll text you. Bedtime is 8. Strict. He needs routine. His inhaler is the blue one. 2 puffs if he starts wheezing. The nebulizer is for emergencies only. You'll know if it gets that bad. Devon pulled out his own phone, started making notes. Allergies? Peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish. EpiPen is in the red case in his room. Second one in the kitchen by the phone. School? Private kindergarten, but it's spring break this week. He's supposed to have playdate on Friday, but I can cancel. Don't cancel. Give me the parents' contact info. I'll handle it. Devon looked up from his notes. Ma'am, I've got this. You need to trust that I know what I'm doing or this won't work. Victoria's hands twisted together, a gesture so unlike her polished exterior that it humanized her more than anything else could have. I don't know how to trust this. I don't know you. No, ma'am, you don't. But you read my background check. You talked to my references. And right now your son is showing my daughter his inhaler like it's the most interesting thing he's seen all week. Sometimes you have to trust the moment you're in, not the 1,000 ways it could go wrong. She looked over at the kids, at Jasper explaining the difference between his rescue inhaler and his daily maintenance one, at Zara listening with the focused attention of someone who understood medical equipment as survival tools. When Victoria looked back at Devon, her eyes were wet again. If anything happens to him, nothing will happen to him. I'm going to keep him safe, keep him fed, keep him medicated, and keep him as happy as a 6-year-old with anxiety can be. That's my job now. Go do yours. Victoria left 15 minutes later, after double-checking that Devon had her personal cell, her office number, her assistant's number, and explicit instructions to call 911 first and her second if anything went medically wrong. Devon waited until the elevator doors closed behind her, then turned to find both kids staring at him expectantly. All right, new plan. Zara, you're going to show Jasper your favorite breakfast. Jasper, you're going to show Zara your room. We're going to spend today figuring out how this works. Sound good? Both kids nodded. Devon followed them into the kitchen, all stainless steel and marble countertops, and started opening cabinets looking for pans. The refrigerator held organic produce, almond milk, cage-free eggs, and the kind of specialty items that came from stores Devon had only ever driven past. He found oatmeal in the pantry, honey, cinnamon, fresh berries, made breakfast while the kids sat at the counter and negotiated who got to tell the first story. Jasper went first, explaining in halting sentences about how his parents used to fight a lot, how his dad moved out last year, how the fighting stopped, but now he only saw his dad on weekends, and sometimes his dad was mad at his mom, and sometimes he forgot to refill Jasper's medications on time. Zara listened like a tiny therapist, nodding in the right places, asking clarifying questions. That proved she'd learned too much about adult dysfunction too young. Then Zara explained about her mom dying, about the hospital visits, about how her dad worked 2 jobs but never missed her school plays, about how she worried sometimes that her heart would stop working and her dad would be alone. Jasper reached out and patted her hand, a gesture of comfort that looked borrowed from some adult he'd watched, and something in Devon's chest compressed hard. These were not normal 6- and 7-year-old conversations. These were children who'd been forced to grow up around the edges, who'd learned to navigate adult pain with child-sized understanding. And in that moment, Devon understood what Victoria hadn't quite said last night. that Jasper needed someone who could meet him in that complicated space between child and caretaker. Someone who understood that medical conditions and family trauma weren't things you could fix with money or routine alone. After breakfast, Devon supervised while both kids brushed teeth, got dressed, took their respective medications. He logged everything in his phone: Jasper's morning inhaler at 8:15, Zara's heart medication at 8:20, both kids' vitamins at 8:25. Then he set up Zara's portable pulse monitor on the coffee table, showed Jasper how the numbers worked, explained what to watch for. If the numbers go above 120 or below 60, you tell me immediately. Don't wait. Don't worry about interrupting. Zara's heart is like your lungs. Sometimes it needs help, and there's no shame in asking for it. Jasper studied the monitor with scientific focus. Does she have to wear it all the time? Just during the day when she's active. Nighttime we use a different one that's quieter. My dad says my inhaler makes me weak. Devon stopped what he was doing, turned to face Jasper fully. Your inhaler makes you smart. It means you know how to take care of your body, how to ask for help when you need it. That's not weak, buddy. That's brave. Weak is pretending you're fine when you're not. Brave is using the tools you have to stay healthy. Jasper's face did something complicated, like he was trying to reconcile this version of strength with whatever his father had taught him. My dad says a lot of things that I don't think are true anymore. Yeah, some adults say things that make them feel better, not things that are actually true. You get to decide which things to believe. They spent the morning doing simple things, reading books, building a blanket fort, watching half of an animated movie about talking animals. Devon cleaned while they played, not the deep industrial cleaning of his night job, but the ordinary tidying of a lived-in space. He found evidence of Victoria's life in the details. Coffee cups left in odd places, a laptop charger snaking across the floor, a stack of business proposals on the dining table that nobody had bothered to clear. The penthouse was expensive but not particularly cared for, not in the way homes were cared for when people actually lived in them instead of just sleeping there between work obligations. At noon, Devon drove both kids to Jasper's occupational therapy appointment in a medical building downtown. The therapist, a woman named Sarah with kind eyes and efficient hands, looked surprised to see Devon instead of Victoria. Mr. Cross usually brings Jasper on Wednesdays. I'm Devon Carter. Ms. Cross hired me to cover childcare for the next couple weeks. She forwarded you my information yesterday. Sarah checked her tablet, nodded. Right. Okay, Jasper, you ready to work? Jasper looked at Devon uncertainly. Devon knelt down. I'm going to be right here in the waiting room with Zara. You go do your work with Miss Sarah. When you're done, we'll get lunch wherever you want. Even if I want chicken nuggets? Even then. Jasper disappeared into the therapy room. Zara curled up next to Devon on the waiting room couch, pulling out her art supplies from her backpack. She drew while Devon checked his phone. 3 texts from Victoria asking for updates, 1 email from his night shift supervisor asking if he'd be in tonight, and a reminder notification about a bill due Friday that he wouldn't be able to pay until Victoria's first payment cleared. He texted Victoria back. Breakfast good, morning smooth, at OT now, both kids fine. Her response came immediately. Thank you. I'm sorry for texting so much. You're his mom. You're supposed to worry. I've got him. Zara tugged on his sleeve, held up her drawing. 2 houses, one big and fancy, one small and simple. Between them, a bridge made of hearts. Do you think they'll let us come back after 2 weeks? I don't know, baby. This is temporary, remember? Miss Victoria needs to find someone permanent. But what if we're good at it? What if Jasper likes us? Devon pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Then we'll be glad we got to help, and we'll remember it was a good thing. But we don't get to decide how long good things last. We just get to be grateful they happened. Jasper emerged from therapy 45 minutes later, sweaty and tired but smiling. They went to a fast food place that made Zara's eyes light up, because Devon usually said no to anything with a drive-through. The kids demolished chicken nuggets and French fries while Devin picked at a salad and tried not to calculate how much this meal cost relative to his normal grocery budget. Back at the penthouse, both kids crashed hard, falling asleep on the couch during the second half of their movie. Devin covered them with a throw blanket, then stood in Victoria's kitchen staring at the ingredients in her refrigerator and trying to figure out what to make for dinner that would satisfy a 6-year-old's palate and still count as nutritious. His phone buzzed. Not Victoria this time. A number he didn't recognize, local area code. "This is Devin." "Mr. Carter, this is Marcus Brennan. I believe you're currently employed by my ex-fiancé." Devin's entire body went on alert. He stepped out onto the balcony, sliding the door shut behind him so the kids wouldn't overhear. "I'm watching her son for a couple weeks. That's the extent of my employment. I'm sure she's paying you well. Victoria's always been generous when she wants something." Marcus's voice carried the particular condescension of men who'd grown up knowing their opinions mattered. "I wanted to reach out personally, one father to another. I understand you have a daughter with medical needs. What do you want, Mr. Brennan? I want to offer you a better opportunity. Walk away from Victoria's household now, today, and I'll pay you $5,000 cash. Tonight, no questions asked." Devin's mind went perfectly still. $5,000 would cover everything. Zara's appointment, 2 months of medications, the past due utility bill, the credit card he'd maxed paying for Simone's hospice care. $5,000 was the number that would let him sleep at night for the first time in 3 years. "Why would you pay me to leave?" "Because Victoria's greatest weakness is that she cares too much about the wrong things. Right now she cares about proving she can manage Jasper's care despite her impossible work schedule. When you leave, and you will leave, Mr. Carter, whether it's today or in 2 weeks, she'll spiral. The judge will see that she can't maintain stable childcare. I'll get primary custody, and Jasper will finally have the stability he deserves." Stability with a father who uses his kid as a weapon in a custody fight? Marcus's laugh was sharp. "I use the tools available to me. Victoria chose her career over our family. Now she gets to face the consequences. You're just collateral damage. But you don't have to be. Take the $5,000, walk away. Your daughter gets her medical care, Victoria faces reality, everyone wins. Everyone except Jasper, who loses his mother. Jasper will be fine. Boys need their fathers, he'll adjust." Devin looked through the glass door at the 2 kids asleep on the couch, at Jasper's hand resting on Zara's arm like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. He thought about Simone, about the way she'd taught him that doing the right thing rarely felt comfortable in the moment, but always felt clean afterward. "Mr. Brennan, I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to have to decline." Silence on the other end, then disbelief. "You're turning down $5,000 for pride? For dignity, there's a difference, and you wouldn't understand it." Devin kept his voice level, professional. "I made a commitment to Miss Cross. I keep my commitments. If you have issues with your custody arrangement, take them up with your lawyer and the judge. Don't involve me." "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it'll be my mistake to make, not yours to profit from." Devin ended the call, his hands shaking hard enough that he had to grip the balcony railing. $5,000. He'd just walked away from $5,000 because accepting it would mean participating in something that hurt a child. Simone would have been proud. Simone would have also pointed out that pride didn't pay cardiologist bills. He texted Victoria, "Marcus Brennan just called me, offered me $5,000 to quit. Thought you should know." I told him no. 3 minutes passed. Then Victoria called. "Are you serious?" "Yes, ma'am. Recorded the call if you want it for your lawyer." "You recorded it?" "I record all unexpected calls from people I don't know. Habit from when debt collectors were harassing me after Simone died. Figured it might be useful." Victoria's breath came out shaky. "Send me the file, and Devin, thank you for telling me and for saying no. I don't take money to hurt kids, ma'am. That's not negotiable for me." After she hung up, Devin stood on the balcony for a long time, watching the city stretch out below, watching people move through their lives in buildings and streets and spaces he'd never occupy. He'd done the right thing. He knew he'd done the right thing. But right things didn't make his daughter's heart defect disappear, didn't make medical debt vanish, didn't change the fact that he was gambling everything on a 2-week job that could end any moment. Inside, Zara woke up first. She padded out to the balcony, slipped her small hand into his. "Daddy, you okay?" "Yeah, baby, just thinking." "About money stuff?" "Sometimes." "Are we going to be okay?" Devin looked down at his daughter, at her serious face and her 2 knowing eyes, and made a decision. He'd spent 3 years trying to shield her from financial stress, from medical uncertainty, from the reality that their lives balanced on a knife's edge every single day. But Zara was smart. She knew more than he wanted her to know. And maybe honesty was better than protection. "We're going to work hard, make good choices, and trust that things will work out. That's all anybody can do, sweetheart. We're going to be okay because we take care of each other. That's what makes us okay." Zara nodded slowly, like she was filing this information away for future reference. "Is Jasper going to be okay?" "I hope so. That's why we're here. To help make sure he is." They went back inside. Jasper was awake, sitting on the couch, looking lost. Devin sat down next to him. "Hey, buddy, you feeling okay?" "I don't want to go back to my dad's house this weekend." Devin's chest went tight. "Why not?" "Because he's mean to my mom, and sometimes he forgets my inhaler, and he says I'm too sensitive when I get scared." Jasper's voice dropped to a whisper. "Is it bad that I don't want to see my dad?" "No, it's honest. And honest feelings aren't bad feelings, they're just true feelings. But that's something your mom and the judge have to figure out together. My job is just to keep you safe and happy while your mom's at work. Think I'm doing okay so far?" Jasper nodded. "You're better than the nannies. They always acted like I was a job. You act like you actually care." "That's because I do care. You're a good kid going through hard stuff. You deserve people who care." Victoria came home at 7:30, earlier than Devin expected based on the CEO schedule he'd imagined. She found all 3 of them in the kitchen. Devin at the stove making pasta with vegetables, Zara setting the table with Jasper's help, music playing from Devin's phone. The scene was so domestic, so utterly different from the sterile perfection of her normal household, that she stopped in the doorway like she'd walked into the wrong apartment. "You're cooking." "Kids need dinner, ma'am. Hope pasta's okay." Wasn't sure about Jasper's preferences, so I made 3 options, plain with butter and cheese or with vegetables and sauce. "He usually eats plain." "That's fine. More vegetables for me and Zara." Victoria set down her briefcase, loosened the scarf around her neck. Jasper ran to her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "Mommy, Devin took me to therapy and we got chicken nuggets and we watched movies and Zara showed me her heart scar and it was the best day." Victoria's hands came up to cradle Jasper's head, her expression doing that complicated thing again, where emotions fought for space on her carefully controlled face. "Yeah, you had a good day?" "The best day." "Can Devin and Zara stay forever?" "They're staying for 2 weeks, remember? Then we'll see." Devin plated pasta, served the kids first, then made plates for himself and Victoria. They ate at the dining table, the kids chattering about their fort-building plans for tomorrow. Victoria quiet but present in ways that suggested she was actually listening instead of just mentally composing emails. When dinner ended and the kids ran off to watch another movie, Victoria helped Devin clear plates. "You didn't have to do all this. I have cleaning service." "Cleaning service doesn't teach kids to take responsibility for their own messes. Besides, I like cooking. It's one of the things I can control." Victoria rinsed a plate, handed it to Devin for the dishwasher. "Marcus called you." "Yes, ma'am." "He offered you money to sabotage me." "He offered me money to quit. Same effect, different framing." "And you said no." She wasn't asking, just confirming what she already knew. "I said no." Victoria turned off the water, faced him directly. Why? $5,000 would solve a lot of problems for you. I've seen your financials from the background check. You're drowning in medical debt. Your daughter needs expensive specialist care. You work 2 jobs and barely break even. Why wouldn't you take money that could change your life? Devon dried his hands on a dish towel, met her eyes with the same directness she'd given him. Because accepting that money would mean participating in something that hurts your son. And I don't hurt kids for profit. That's not complicated math, Miss Cross. That's just basic decency. Most people don't think of it that way. Then most people are wrong. Devon folded the towel, set it on the counter. I know what it's like to lose someone you love, because you don't have enough money for the treatment that might save them. I know what it's like to make choices between debt and death, and I know that the one thing you can't buy back is the person you become when you sell out your principles for cash. I can't give my daughter a lot of things, but I can give her a father who keeps his word and doesn't trade other people's pain for his own comfort. That's worth more than $5,000. That's worth more than anything. Victoria's eyes filled with tears for the second time in 2 days. I don't know what I did to deserve you showing up in my life. You cried in your office at midnight. That's all it took, being human enough to show you needed help. Thursday morning arrived with the particular chaos of children who'd decided they were best friends overnight. Devon woke at 5:30 to find both kids already awake, building an elaborate fort in Jasper's room using every blanket and pillow in the penthouse. Zara's pulse monitor beeped steadily from where she'd clipped it to her pajama collar. 94 beats per minute, and Jasper demonstrated his morning breathing exercises like he was teaching a masterclass in respiratory management. Devon made breakfast while Victoria emerged from her bedroom looking like she'd slept in her suit, phone already pressed to her ear, pacing the kitchen while discussing merger terms with someone in London. She grabbed coffee, mouthed thank you at Devon, and disappeared back into her office without sitting down. The kids ate scrambled eggs and fruit while debating whether their fort qualified as a castle or a spaceship, eventually settling on Space Castle as the only logical compromise. By 9 o'clock, Devon had both kids medicated, dressed, and working on an art project at the dining table when his phone rang. Mrs. Patricia Walsh, his neighbor from the apartment building, her Irish accent thick with concern. Devon, love, I hate to bother you, but the building manager just posted a notice. They're doing emergency pipe repairs in our section tomorrow. Water shut off from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thought you should know in case you need to fill containers. Devon's mind immediately calculated. He wouldn't be home tomorrow anyway, but his apartment held everything he owned, limited as that was. Thanks for the heads up, Mrs. Walsh. I'm actually out of town for work this week. Could you keep an eye on my place? Of course, dear. And how's our Zara doing? Haven't seen her little face in days. She's good. Really good, actually. Making friends. Devon watched Zara carefully color inside the lines of a drawing she was making for Jasper, her tongue sticking out in concentration. After he hung up, Victoria emerged from her office, jacket on, briefcase in hand. I have a 10 o'clock with the board, should be back by 3. Jasper has a play date at 4:30 with a classmate named Riley. The mother's number is in my contacts under Riley's mom. She'll pick him up here. Got it. What should I know about Riley? Victoria paused, clearly not used to being asked for context on her son's social relationships. He's very energetic, loud. Jasper usually comes home exhausted but happy. The mother, Claire, is lovely but asks a lot of personal questions. You don't have to answer anything you're not comfortable with. I can handle nosy, ma'am. Comes with the territory of being a single dad. Victoria's expression flickered with something that might have been gratitude or might have been relief. She knelt down to Jasper's level. You be good for Devon, okay? And remember, if you start feeling anxious, you tell him. He knows what to do. Jasper hugged her fiercely. Will you be home for dinner? I'll try, baby, but if not, Devon will take care of you. After she left, Devon settled into the strange rhythm of caring for someone else's child in someone else's home. He supervised toothbrushing, mediated a dispute about whose turn it was to choose the music, and fielded a surprisingly sophisticated question from Jasper about whether heaven was real or just something people said to make death less scary. I don't know for sure, buddy. Nobody alive knows for sure. But I think the people we love don't really leave us even when they die. They're in our memories, in the things they taught us, in the ways we love other people because of how they loved us. Jasper considered this while building a tower from blocks. Is your wife in heaven? I hope so. Or somewhere good. Somewhere she's not hurting anymore. Do you still love her even though she's dead? Zara looked up from her drawing, waiting for the answer she'd heard before but apparently needed to hear again. Devon set down the block he'd been holding. Yeah, I still love her. Death doesn't turn off love like a switch. You keep loving people, you just have to learn how to love them differently when they're not here to love you back in the same ways. Jasper nodded seriously, filed this away with whatever other impossible truths 6-year-olds collected when their families exploded. My dad says love is for weak people, that strong people don't need anybody. The anger that flashed through Devon was sharp and immediate, but he kept his voice level. Your dad is wrong about that. The strongest thing a person can do is let themselves need someone. Let themselves be vulnerable enough to love someone knowing it might hurt. Pretending you don't need anybody isn't strength. It's just fear dressed up fancy. At 4:15, the doorbell rang. Devon opened it to find a woman in yoga pants and an expensive athletic jacket. Blonde hair pulled into a ponytail, smile bright and assessing. Behind her stood a small tornado of a boy with red hair and freckles. You must be the new nanny. I'm Claire Morrison, Riley's mom. Victoria mentioned she'd hired someone, but I had no idea. Well, hello. Her eyes traveled over Devon in a way that made his skin prickle with discomfort. Devon Carter. Jasper's ready, just let me grab his bag. Riley had already launched himself into the apartment, found Jasper, and dragged him toward the fort with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested impulse control was not his strong suit. Claire followed Devon inside, her assessment continuing. So how long have you been doing childcare? You don't really seem like the nanny type. I'm a father. That's the only type that matters for this job. Oh, you have kids? How many? One daughter. She's here too. Zara, come say hello. Zara appeared from the fort, waved politely, then disappeared back inside. Claire's smile never wavered, but her eyes sharpened. Victoria's really brought both of you into her home. That's very trusting of her. Devon kept his expression neutral. Miss Cross needed childcare. I needed work. Pretty straightforward arrangement. I'm sure. It's just surprising, that's all. Victoria's usually so private. And after the Marcus situation, I'd think she'd be more careful about who she lets around Jasper. Claire leaned against the counter, settling in like she planned to extract more information through sheer persistence. The Marcus situation? Oh, you don't know? Well, I shouldn't gossip, but since you're living here, Marcus Brennan, her ex-fiancé, total nightmare. Controlling, manipulative, used Jasper as leverage in every argument. When Victoria finally ended it, he went nuclear. The custody fight's been vicious. He's trying to prove she's an unfit mother because she works too much, can't maintain stable childcare, all of it. Claire's voice dropped to conspiratorial. Honestly, between you and me, I think he's dangerous, not physically but emotionally. The way he talks about her, the way he undermines her parenting, it's calculated. Devon processed this, filing away information that explained Victoria's desperation and Marcus's $5,000 offer. Sounds like Jasper's lucky to have his mom fighting for him. Oh, absolutely. Victoria adores that boy. She's just terrible at showing it. Too much time in boardrooms, not enough time being human. Claire checked her watch. We should get going. Bringing them back around 7, that okay? Perfect. Jasper, you have your inhaler? Jasper patted his pocket, nodded. Riley grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the door, both boys talking over each other about their plans for the afternoon. After they left, Zara emerged from the fort. "That lady asks too many questions." "Yeah, she does. Some people are curious, some people are nosy. You learn to tell the difference." They spent the rest of the afternoon quietly, Zara working on her drawings, Devin catching up on emails from his maintenance job supervisor asking when he'd be back for day shifts. His night shift supervisor confirming he couldn't do both jobs simultaneously and needed to choose. Devin stared at that email for a long time. Giving up the night shift meant losing $1,800 a month in income. Keeping it meant sleeping 3 hours a night for 2 weeks and probably collapsing. He forwarded the email to himself for later when he had brain space to make impossible decisions. Victoria came home at 6:45, earlier than yesterday but still after business hours ended for normal people. She found Devin and Zara in the kitchen, dinner prepared but not yet served, waiting for Jasper's return. "How was the play date?" Riley's mom picked him up, bringing him back at 7. She had a lot of questions about our arrangement. Victoria's jaw tightened. "Claire loves gossip more than her Pilates class. What did you tell her?" "That you needed childcare and I needed work. Kept it simple." "Thank you. The less the parent network knows about my personal situation, the better. They're already speculating about Marcus and the custody fight." She poured herself wine from a bottle in the refrigerator, took a long drink. "The board meeting was a disaster. 3 members are questioning the merger, 2 are questioning my leadership, and Marcus spent the entire session undermining every proposal I made." Devin pulled plates from the cabinet, started serving chicken and rice. "He's on your board?" "Minority shareholder, inherited the position from his father, can't remove him without cause, and being an asshole isn't legal cause." Victoria sat at the counter, shoulders slumping in ways they probably never did at the office. "I'm so tired of fighting him. Every single thing becomes a battle. Custody, business, social circles. He's turned half our mutual friends against me, convinced them I'm a workaholic who chose career over family." "Did you?" The question came out sharper than Devin intended, but Victoria didn't flinch. She just stared into her wine glass like it held answers. "Maybe. Probably. I don't know anymore. When Marcus and I were together, he said he wanted a partner who was ambitious, who understood the demands of building something significant. Then the minute I got pregnant, he changed the narrative. Suddenly I was supposed to scale back, let him be the primary earner, focus on being Jasper's mother. And I tried for about 6 months after Jasper was born. I took leave, stayed home, did the whole perfect mother routine, and I was miserable. Marcus was miserable because I was miserable. Jasper was an infant who didn't care either way. So I went back to work, hired excellent childcare, and Marcus started his campaign to prove I'd made the wrong choice." Devin plated food in silence, processing this version of Victoria that didn't match the put-together CEO facade. "Did you make the wrong choice?" "I don't know. I know I'm good at running companies and terrible at being present for my son's daily life. I know Jasper deserves better than a mother who schedules quality time like business meetings. I know Marcus isn't wrong that I've sacrificed parenting for profit margins." Her voice cracked slightly. "But I also know that going back to being who I was before Jasper means erasing a part of myself I worked 20 years to build. And I don't know how to be both people at once." Devin set a plate in front of her, then sat across the counter with his own. "Can I tell you what I've learned from being a single parent? Please. You can't be both people at once. You can only be one person making 1,000 small choices every day about what matters most in that specific moment. Sometimes Zara needs me to skip a shift and be at her school play. Sometimes she needs me to work a double so we can pay for her medications. The trick isn't balance. Balance is bullshit people sell in self-help books. The trick is being honest about what you're choosing and why, and making sure your kid knows they're the most important thing even when you're not physically there." Victoria's eyes were wet again, becoming a pattern Devon recognized. How do I make Jasper know he's the most important thing when I'm in board meetings until 8 p.m.? You're here now. You came home early 2 nights in a row. You asked about his play date. You're trying. Kids don't need perfection, they need effort. They need to see you showing up even when it's hard. Devon took a bite of chicken, chewed, swallowed. Also, you could start by actually eating dinner with him instead of working through it. I have emails. The emails will be there in an hour. Your 6-year-old won't be 6 forever. Choose accordingly. The doorbell rang before Victoria could respond. Devon answered it to find Jasper and Riley, both boys covered in what appeared to be finger paint and possibly mud, Claire looking exasperated but amused. They had a great time. Destroyed my craft room, but great time. She handed Devon Jasper's bag. Same time next week? I'll check with Miss Cross and let you know. After they left, Jasper launched into a detailed explanation of everything he and Riley had built, painted, imagined, and destroyed over the past 2.5 hours. Victoria listened, actually listened, asking questions and laughing at his descriptions. They ate dinner together, all 4 of them, the conversation flowing in ways that suggested this might be what family dinners looked like when people bothered to have them. Later, after both kids were in bed, Zara in the guest room, Jasper in his own with his nightlight and white noise machine, Devon found Victoria in the kitchen staring at her laptop but not actually typing. Thank you for today, for the advice, for calling me out. Just telling you what I wish someone had told me before Simone died. You don't get the time back. Use it while you have it. Victoria closed her laptop, a gesture that seemed to cost her physical effort. Can I ask you something personal? Depends on the question. Do you ever stop feeling like you're failing? Like every choice you make for your daughter is somehow the wrong one? Devon thought about Zara's hospital bills, about the specialist appointment he could only afford because of this job, about the 100 small ways he fell short of what Simone would have done. No, you don't stop feeling like that. You just learn to live with it and keep making choices anyway. Parenting isn't about getting it right, it's about getting it wrong in ways you can live with and your kid can recover from. Friday morning brought Zara's routine cardiology check-in at her regular pediatrician's office, a 40-minute drive from Victoria's penthouse to the clinic near Devon's apartment. He'd scheduled it weeks ago, before any of this started, and Victoria had insisted both he and Jasper come along rather than leave Jasper with a stranger. The clinic waiting room was familiar territory. Plastic chairs, outdated magazines, a fish tank that had been broken for 6 months. Jasper stared at everything with wide eyes, taking in the diversity of the other families waiting, the Spanish and Mandarin and what might have been Amharic floating through conversations around them. Devon checked in at the desk, handed over insurance cards, and prepared for the usual 20-minute wait that always stretched to 45. Why do all these people look sick? They're not all sick, buddy. Some are here for checkups like Zara. Some are sick and getting help. That's what doctors are for, keeping people healthy or helping them get better. Jasper absorbed this, then noticed a little girl across the room with an oxygen tank. What's wrong with her? Don't know. Not our business to know, but she's probably here getting help, same as we are. When Zara's name was called, all 3 of them went back to the exam room. The nurse, an older black woman named Patricia who'd been seeing Zara since she was 3, raised an eyebrow at Devon's expanded entourage. Who's this young man? This is Jasper. I'm watching him for a couple of weeks. Figured he could learn what a real doctor's visit looks like. Patricia smiled at Jasper. Well, you're in for a show. Miss Zara here is my best patient, knows all her numbers, never complains, brave as anything. She started the routine. Blood pressure, oxygen saturation, temperature, weight. Zara sat still through all of it, answering questions about her energy levels, any chest pain, any episodes of rapid heartbeat. When the pediatrician came in, Dr. Chen, a woman Victoria's age with kind eyes and efficient hands, she went through the examination with practiced care. Listened to Zara's heart, checked her surgical scar, reviewed the pulse monitor logs Devin kept on his phone. Everything looks stable, heart rate's good, no irregular rhythms. She's gained 3 pounds since December, which is excellent. How's she been activity-wise? Normal 7-year-old, runs around, plays, gets tired at appropriate times, no fainting, no chest pain, no blue lips. Dr. Chen made notes, then looked at Devin with the expression doctors used when they were about to say something parents didn't want to hear. The specialist appointment on the 15th is critical. Her murmur hasn't worsened, but it hasn't improved either. We need the cardiology consult to determine if we're looking at surgical intervention down the line or if medical management is sufficient. Devin's chest tightened. Surgical intervention meaning another open heart surgery? Potentially. Or a catheter-based repair depending on what the imaging shows. I don't want to speculate until we have the specialist's assessment, but I want you prepared for the possibility. She softened her voice. I know the financial burden is significant. Have you looked into the hospital's charity care program? Applied 3 times. Income's too high to qualify. Insurance coverage is too low to manage the costs. We're in the gap. Devin kept his voice steady, aware of both kids listening. We'll figure it out. We always do. After the appointment, Devin drove back toward Victoria's building in silence, both kids subdued. Jasper finally spoke up from the back seat. Is Zara going to die? No, buddy, she's going to be fine. Sometimes bodies need extra help, that's all. Her heart needs some fixing, but doctors are really good at fixing hearts. My mom says doctors can't fix everything. Devin glanced in the rearview mirror, saw Jasper's worried face. Your mom's right about that. Doctors can't fix everything, but they can fix a lot of things, and Zara's heart is one of them. She's tough. She's going to be okay. Zara turned around in her seat, reached back to pat Jasper's knee. Don't worry, I've had surgery before, it's not that bad. They give you good popsicles after. That night, after both kids were asleep, Victoria found Devin on the balcony staring at the city lights. She didn't say anything, just stood next to him holding 2 mugs of tea, offering him one. I heard you on the phone earlier, with the hospital billing department. Devin took the tea, didn't meet her eyes. They're willing to do a payment plan, $300 a month for 12 months for today's appointment, on top of the $200 I'm already paying for last year's appointments. And that's before the specialist in May. Let me help. We've had this conversation. We had it about emergency care. This is preventive care. This is planning ahead. That's different. Victoria's voice carried the same firm quality she probably used in boardrooms. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering an interest-free loan. You pay me back when you can, however you can. Or we work it into your employment terms, extended contract, higher pay rate, whatever makes you feel like you're earning it. Devin finally looked at her. This woman who'd been a stranger 4 days ago and was now offering him a lifeline he couldn't afford to accept and couldn't afford to refuse. Why would you do that? Because you're here helping my son when you could be sleeping. Because you turned down $5,000 from Marcus on principle. Because Zara deserves medical care and you deserve not to drown in debt trying to provide it. Victoria's jaw set. And because I have more money than I'll ever need and you need money for something that actually matters. Let me do something useful with it. If I say yes, I need a contract, written terms, interest-free loan with repayment schedule, everything legal and documented. I'm not taking handouts. Done. I'll have my lawyer draw it up tomorrow. Victoria sipped her tea. For what it's worth, you're teaching me things about dignity that I thought I understood but didn't. You're showing me what it looks like to have principles that don't bend when things get hard. That's worth more than money. Saturday morning, Marcus showed up for his scheduled custody exchange. Victoria had warned Devin it was coming, but nothing quite prepared him for the reality of Marcus Brennan in person. Expensive suit, cologne that probably cost more than Devin's monthly groceries, smile that didn't reach his eyes. So you're still here? Interesting. Devon stood between Marcus and the apartment, Jasper visible behind him getting his overnight bag ready. I work here. You picking up Jasper? I'm exercising my court-mandated parenting time with my son, yes. Marcus peered past Devon. Jasper, come say goodbye to the help and let's go. Jasper emerged slowly, his inhaler clutched in one hand, his overnight bag in the other. Devon knelt down, checked that the bag had extra medications, the emergency contact list, the schedule of when each medication needed to be taken. You call me if you need anything, okay, buddy? I don't care what time. You call. I'll be fine. But Jasper's voice wavered, his eyes already showing the anxiety that preceded his episodes. Marcus took the bag, didn't check its contents. We'll be fine. He doesn't need a babysitter when he's with his father. He needs his medications on schedule and his inhaler nearby. That's not babysitting, that's basic medical care. I'm aware of my son's needs, thank you. Marcus guided Jasper toward the elevator, hand tight on the boy's shoulder in a way that looked possessive rather than protective. See you Sunday evening, Jasper. Try not to let your mother's boyfriend fill your head with nonsense. After they left, Devon found Victoria in her office, hands pressed against her desk like she needed the physical support. I hate this. Every time he takes Jasper, I'm terrified of what he'll say, what he'll do, how he'll undermine everything I'm trying to build. What does the custody arrangement say about medical care? We're required to share medication schedules and health updates. Marcus is supposed to follow Jasper's treatment plan. But he's forgotten inhalers before, said Jasper was being dramatic about his breathing, accused me of overreacting to normal childhood anxiety. Her voice dropped. Last month, Jasper had an asthma attack at Marcus's house. Marcus didn't call me for 3 hours, didn't take him to the hospital, just gave him the inhaler and told him to calm down. By the time I found out, Jasper had been wheezing for hours. Devon's hands curled into fists. Did you report it to the court? Marcus's lawyer said I was being hysterical, that boys get asthma attacks and there's no evidence Marcus was negligent. The judge told us to communicate better. Victoria's laugh was bitter. Communicate better with a man who uses our son's medical conditions as leverage. The weekend stretched long without Jasper. Zara seemed quieter, her drawings taking on a worried quality. Stick figures with frowning faces, dark clouds, jagged lines that might have been lightning or might have been something worse. Devon took her to the park, to the library, back to their apartment so she could check on her room and water the plants Mrs. Walsh had been tending. Their apartment looked smaller than he remembered, darker, more cramped. Zara stood in the doorway of her bedroom and asked the question he'd been dreading. Do we have to go back here when the 2 weeks are over? This is our home, baby. But Victoria's place has more space, and Jasper, and you're happier there. Devon sat on her bed, pulled her down next to him. I'm not happier there. I'm working there. There's a difference. You smile more. You laugh more. You cook fancy dinners and talk to Victoria like she's your friend. Zara's voice got very small. Are you going to marry her like Riley's mom said you would? Riley's mom? What? Devon's brain stuttered. When did Riley's mom say that? When she picked up Jasper. I heard her talking to her friend on the phone in the hallway. She said Victoria had a live-in boyfriend now, and it was only a matter of time before there was a wedding, and wasn't it romantic how the rich lady fell for the janitor? Devon closed his eyes, counted to 10, reminded himself that Claire Morrison's gossip wasn't his problem to manage. I'm not Victoria's boyfriend. I'm not marrying her. I'm working for her for 2 weeks to help pay for your doctor appointments. That's all this is. But do you want to marry her? Zara, sweetheart, I barely know her. But if you did know her, would you want to? Because I think she's lonely and you're lonely. And maybe lonely people should be together so they're not lonely anymore. Devon pulled his daughter close, breathing in the strawberry shampoo smell of her hair, the particular warmth of her small body against his. Being lonely isn't a good reason to be with someone. You're with someone because you love them. Because they make you better, because you can't imagine your life without them. And that takes time to build. It took me and your mom 2 years before we knew we wanted to get married. You can't rush that stuff. But Mom's dead. You're allowed to love someone else now. The words hit Devin like a physical blow. Not because they were wrong, but because they came from his 7-year-old daughter who apparently spent her time worrying about her father's emotional well-being when she should have been worrying about multiplication tables and which colored pencils to use. Yeah, I'm allowed, but I'm not there yet. And when I am, if I am, you'll be the first person I tell. Deal? Deal. Sunday evening, Marcus brought Jasper back 90 minutes late, the boy pale and wheezing, his inhaler empty. Victoria met them at the door, Devin standing behind her, both of them watching Jasper stumble into the apartment looking like he'd run a marathon. What happened? Marcus shrugged. He's fine. Got a little worked up playing with some kids at the park. Used his inhaler, he's fine. Devin knelt down, listened to Jasper's breathing. The telltale whistle of airways constricted, the rapid, shallow breaths of someone struggling to get oxygen. Buddy, how many puffs have you done today? Jasper held up fingers. 8? Maybe 9? And when was the last one? An hour ago? Devin looked at the empty inhaler, then at Marcus. His rescue inhaler is limited to 8 puffs per 24 hours. After that, he needs the nebulizer or emergency care. Did you give him the nebulizer? He said he was fine. He's 6. He doesn't get to decide if he's fine when he can't breathe properly. That's the parent's job. Devin stood, face carefully neutral, even though rage burned through his chest. Miss Cross, we need to get him on the nebulizer now, then monitor him. If his oxygen saturation drops below 92, we're going to the ER. Victoria was already moving, pulling the nebulizer from the hall closet, mixing the medication, setting up Jasper on the couch with the mask. Marcus watched with barely concealed contempt. You're overreacting. He's breathing fine. Devin pulled out his phone, started recording. For the record, Jasper Cross returned to his mother's care at 7:42 p.m. on Sunday, March 12th, presenting with respiratory distress after exceeding the recommended dosage of his rescue inhaler. His father, Marcus Brennan, did not administer the prescribed nebulizer treatment despite Jasper's increased symptoms. He turned the camera toward Marcus. Anything you'd like to add? Marcus's face went red. You can't record me without permission. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. I'm a party to this conversation. I can record whatever I want. Devin kept the camera steady. Did you or did you not give Jasper his nebulizer treatment when he exceeded his inhaler dosage? This is harassment. Victoria, control your boyfriend. Victoria's voice came out ice cold. He's not my boyfriend. He's my employee, and he's documenting medical negligence, which I'll be submitting to my lawyer tomorrow morning along with a motion to modify custody pending investigation of your care standards. Marcus jabbed a finger toward Devin. You. This is your fault. Poisoning her against me, turning my son into some kind of medical liability. Your son has always been medically complex. The liability is you ignoring his treatment plan. Devin stopped recording, forwarded the video to Victoria and to his own email for backup. You should leave now. Before you say something else we can document. After Marcus stormed out, Devin and Victoria spent the next 2 hours monitoring Jasper's breathing, checking his oxygen levels, watching his color return from pale to normal. By 10 p.m. he was stable enough to sleep, curled up in his bed with his stuffed elephant and his nightlight, the nebulizer within arm's reach just in case. Victoria found Devin in the kitchen making tea he didn't want, just needing something to do with his hands. I'm filing the motion tomorrow. Emergency modification of custody pending medical evaluation. Marcus has proven he can't be trusted with Jasper's health. Good. He shouldn't have unsupervised time if he's going to be negligent. The lawyer says it's a long shot. Judges don't like modifying custody arrangements without clear evidence of harm. One instance of poor judgment might not be enough. Then we document everything. Every exchange, every medication schedule, every conversation, we build a pattern. Devin set down his mug, looked at her directly. I know this isn't what you hired me for. I know I'm supposed to just watch your kid and stay out of your personal business. But I can't watch a father put his son at risk and not do something about it. If that crosses a line, it doesn't cross a line. It's exactly what I need. Victoria's voice broke slightly. I've been fighting Marcus alone for so long I forgot what it felt like to have someone on my side. Someone who sees what I see, who validates that I'm not crazy for being terrified every time Jasper goes to his father's house. You're not crossing a line. You're keeping my son safe. That's worth everything. Monday morning brought the emergency board meeting Marcus had called, ostensibly about the merger but actually about Victoria's fitness to lead given her personal distractions. Devin wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be home with both kids, maintaining the household while Victoria handled business. But Victoria had asked him to bring the kids to her office, to let them play in the company's childcare room while she dealt with Marcus's latest attack. The Cross Industries building was different from the residential tower. More glass and steel, more corporate sterile, hallways filled with people in suits moving with purpose. The childcare room was on the third floor, bright and clean and full of expensive toys that suggested the company took family benefits seriously. Zara and Jasper settled in with board games and art supplies while Devin sat in the waiting area outside, watching Victoria's assistant field phone calls and schedule conflicts. At 11:30, Victoria emerged from the boardroom looking like she'd aged 5 years in 2 hours. Her assistant took one look at her face and started clearing her afternoon calendar without being asked. Victoria walked straight past the reception desk into her private office, and Devin followed without asking permission. What happened? She stood at her window overlooking the city, shoulders rigid. Marcus moved to suspend me as CEO pending resolution of the custody dispute. His argument is that I'm too emotionally compromised to lead effectively, that my judgment is clouded by personal drama, that the company deserves leadership with clear focus. Her reflection in the window showed tears she wouldn't let fall. 3 board members abstained. 2 voted with him. 4 voted to keep me. I won by the narrowest possible margin. But you won. For now. But he's not done. He'll find another angle, another way to undermine me. He'll keep attacking until something sticks or I collapse from exhaustion. She turned to face Devin, makeup smudged, armor cracking. I'm so tired of fighting. Every single day is a battle. Custody, business, public perception, my own guilt about whether I'm doing any of this right. And I look at you, at how you manage everything with Zara on a fraction of my resources, and I feel like a fraud. Like I have everything and I'm still failing. Devin moved closer, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. You're not failing. You're fighting. There's a difference. Failing is giving up. Fighting is showing up every day even when it's hard, even when you're not sure you can win. You're fighting for your son, for your company, for the right to be both a mother and a CEO. That's not failing. That's courage. Victoria's face crumpled. She pressed her hands over her eyes, shoulders shaking with sobs she'd probably been holding back for hours, maybe months. Devin did the only thing that made sense. He pulled her into a hug, let her cry against his shoulder, didn't try to fix anything or offer platitudes. Just held her while she broke down in ways CEOs weren't supposed to break down, in ways that required trust and safety and the knowledge that someone wouldn't judge her for being human. When she finally pulled back, mascara tracking down her face, she looked embarrassed. I'm sorry, that was unprofessional. You're allowed to have feelings, even unprofessional ones. Devin handed her a tissue from the box on her desk. And for what it's worth, I think you're doing better than you give yourself credit for. Jasper knows you love him. He knows you're fighting for him. Kids don't need perfect parents. They need present ones. You're learning how to be present. That counts. Victoria wiped her face, tried to reconstruct her professional mask. I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done this week. For Jasper, for me, for not quitting when Marcus made his offer. You're paying me. That's thanks enough. No, it's not. You've given us more than childcare. You've given us structure, safety, someone who actually cares what happens to Jasper beyond using him as ammunition. That's not in any job description I could write. She took a shaky breath. My lawyer drew up the loan paperwork for Zara's medical expenses. 20,000, interest-free 5-year repayment term. That should cover the specialist appointment and give you buffer for any follow-up care. Devon's throat went tight. 20,000 was more than he'd asked for, more than he'd let himself hope for. That's too much. It's what you need. Take it. Pay me back when you can, or don't. Use it to keep Zara healthy and yourself sane. Victoria managed a small smile. Consider it an investment in the person who's keeping my son alive while I figure out how to be his mother. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Devon sat on Victoria's balcony with the loan paperwork spread in front of him, a pen in his hand, and Simone's voice in his head asking him if this was pride or principle. 20,000 would change everything. Pay off half his medical debt, cover Zara's care for years, give him breathing room to sleep and parent, and maybe even figure out what came after these 2 weeks ended. But accepting it meant being in debt to Victoria, meant owing her something beyond the childcare arrangement, meant complicating a situation that was already far more complicated than either of them had anticipated. It meant trusting that she wouldn't use this against him later, wouldn't hold it over him, wouldn't turn generosity into leverage the way Marcus turned everything into leverage. Victoria found him there, 2 glasses of wine in her hands, offering him one. You don't have to decide tonight. If I don't sign it tonight, I'll talk myself out of it, and Zara needs this. Devon took the wine, didn't drink it. I just need to know. Why are you doing this? Really? Victoria sat in the other chair, tucked her legs under her. Honestly, because watching you parent Zara has shown me what it looks like to put your child first without apology. You work impossible hours, manage impossible debt, make impossible choices, and you never once act like Zara's medical needs are a burden. You just handle it. And I want to be that for Jasper. I want to learn how to put him first without it feeling like I'm erasing myself in the process. Helping you helps me understand what priorities actually look like. Devon signed the paperwork before he could overthink it, slid it across the small table between them. For the record, this doesn't change our arrangement. I'm still your employee. This is still temporary. And when the 2 weeks are up, we go back to our separate lives. Understood. But something in Victoria's expression suggested she didn't quite believe him, or maybe didn't quite believe herself. They sat in silence, drinking wine neither of them particularly wanted, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. Somewhere below them, people were living simpler lives, lives that didn't involve custody battles and medical debt, and complicated feelings that had no business existing between employer and employee. But up here on this balcony, in this strange space they'd carved out of desperation and necessity, Devon felt something shift. Not love. It was too soon for that. Too complicated, too impossible. But something adjacent to it, something that felt like possibility, like maybe broken people could help each other become less broken. Like maybe temporary arrangements could teach you things about permanence you didn't know you needed to learn. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at 9 a.m., 8 days after Devon had first walked into Victoria's crisis and 6 days before his 2-week contract was supposed to end. Victoria's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Rebecca Chen who charged $400 an hour and looked worth every cent, had filed the motion Monday afternoon citing Marcus's medical negligence and requesting immediate modification of the custody arrangement pending full evaluation. Devon spent Thursday night helping Victoria prepare, both of them at her dining table going through documentation while the kids slept. Medical records showing Jasper's previous asthma attacks, text message chains where Marcus had delayed prescription refills, the video Devon had recorded Sunday evening, a detailed log Devon had maintained all week showing every medication dose, every symptom check, every moment of care. Rebecca reviewed it all with clinical precision. This is good, really good. The video especially, having Marcus on record saying Jasper was fine when he was clearly in distress, is powerful. But you need to understand what we're up against. Family court judges are extremely reluctant to modify custody based on one incident. Marcus's lawyer will argue this was an isolated lapse in judgment, not a pattern of neglect. Victoria's hands were shaking as she sorted through papers. It's not isolated. He's done this before. I just never had proof. Then we need to establish pattern without proof, which means testimony. Devon, you'll need to take the stand. Talk about what you observed, what Jasper told you about previous weekends, how Marcus responded Sunday evening. Your perspective as a child care professional with your own medically complex child gives you credibility. Devon's stomach knotted. Taking the stand meant exposing himself to cross-examination, meant having Marcus's lawyer pick apart his background, his finances, his relationship with Victoria. But looking at Victoria's terrified face, at the way her whole body vibrated with fear for her son, he couldn't imagine saying no. I'll testify, whatever you need. Friday morning arrived with gray skies threatening rain. Devon dressed Zara in her nicest dress, explained that they were going to court to help Jasper, that it might be scary but it was important. She nodded with that solemn understanding that came from having lived through too many adult situations too young. Mrs. Patricia Walsh agreed to watch Zara during the hearing. Devon had called her Wednesday, explained the situation in broad strokes, asked if she could help. She'd shown up at Victoria's building at 8:30 with a bag full of activities and her warm Irish comfort. You go do what needs doing, love. This little one and I will be just fine. The courthouse was downtown, all marble and brass, and the particular smell of bureaucracy, floor polish and paper, and the anxiety of 1,000 people whose lives were being decided by strangers in robes. Victoria wore a navy suit that made her look both powerful and maternal. Hair pulled back, minimal makeup, every inch the competent mother Marcus claimed she wasn't. Devon had borrowed a suit from his friend Marcus, different Marcus, coincidentally one of his maintenance co-workers, and felt like an imposter in clothes that didn't quite fit his shoulders. Marcus arrived with his lawyer, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd spent 40 years crushing people in family court. Marcus's eyes landed on Devon and something ugly flickered across his face. Recognition of the man who'd refused his money, who'd documented his negligence, who stood between him and the control he craved. The courtroom was smaller than Devon expected, more intimate. Judge Patricia Morgan presided, late 50s black woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that suggested she'd heard every lie and excuse family law could produce. She reviewed the emergency motion with the kind of efficiency that came from managing an overloaded docket. We're here on petitioner Victoria Cross's emergency motion to modify custody arrangement with respondent Marcus Brennan. Ms. Chen, you have 30 minutes to present your case. Rebecca stood, opened with the facts, Jasper's documented medical conditions, the prescribed treatment protocol, Marcus's Sunday failure to administer proper care. She entered the video Devon had recorded into evidence, played it for the judge. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom, dismissive and cavalier, while Jasper's labored breathing provided horrifying soundtrack. Your Honor, this isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern of Mr. Brennan minimizing his son's medical needs, delaying care, and prioritizing his own convenience over his child's health. We have documentation of prescription refills delayed by weeks, of asthma attacks that went unreported, of a father who fundamentally doesn't believe his son's conditions are serious. Marcus's lawyer objected, argued the video was taken without proper consent, that one instance of poor judgment didn't constitute grounds for emergency modification. The judge overruled him, allowed the evidence, then Rebecca called Devon to the stand. Swearing in felt surreal, hand on Bible, promising to tell truth Devon had built his entire life around. He sat in the witness box, acutely aware of everyone watching, judging, assessing whether a janitor had any business testifying about parenting. Rebecca started gentle. "Mr. Carter, please tell the court about your professional background and qualifications for childcare." Devin explained, 5 years in building maintenance, previous work at an elementary school, CPR certification, his own daughter's medical complexity and the expertise that came from managing her care. He kept his voice steady, his answers clear, his eyes on Rebecca instead of Marcus. "And what have you observed regarding Jasper's medical needs during your time as his caregiver?" "Jasper has moderate persistent asthma requiring daily maintenance medication and a rescue inhaler for acute episodes. He also experiences anxiety that can trigger asthma attacks, creating a feedback loop where stress worsens his breathing, which increases his stress. Proper care requires not just administering medication on schedule, but recognizing early warning signs, slight wheezing, increased respiratory rate, behavioral changes. He needs adults who take his conditions seriously and respond appropriately." "Have you observed Marcus Brennan's approach to Jasper's medical care?" Devin detailed Sunday evening, the late return, Jasper's obvious distress, the empty inhaler, Marcus's dismissiveness. Then he talked about things Jasper had mentioned in passing, carefully framed as the boy's own words rather than Devin's accusations. How his dad sometimes forgot his medications at his apartment. How his dad said breathing exercises were for weak people. How his dad got angry when Jasper needed his inhaler during activities. Marcus's lawyer rose for cross-examination, smile sharp as broken glass. "Mr. Carter, you've been employed by Ms. Cross for what, 9 days?" 10, as of today. 10 days. And in that time, you've lived in her home, cared for her child, formed quite the close relationship with her. Would you say you're biased in her favor?" "I'd say I'm biased in favor of Jasper's safety. That's my job, keeping him healthy and alive. Whether that favors Miss Cross or not is irrelevant to the medical facts." "You're being paid quite well for this work, aren't you? More than your normal maintenance salary?" "I'm being paid market rate for professional childcare, same as any qualified nanny would earn." The lawyer's smile sharpened. "And Ms. Cross has also provided you with a $20,000 personal loan for your daughter's medical expenses, correct?" Devin's chest tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. "Ms. Cross provided an interest-free loan with documented repayment terms. It's a separate employment benefit not related to my testimony today. Isn't it convenient that the woman paying you, housing you, and lending you significant money just happens to need testimony that supports her custody case?" Rebecca objected. "Your Honor, Mr. Carter's financial arrangements don't change the objective facts. The video evidence, the medical records, Marcus Brennan's own words on recording." Judge Morgan sustained the objection, but Devin could see the calculation in her eyes. The lawyer had planted doubt, made it look like Devin was bought and paid for, that his testimony was just another service Victoria had purchased. He wanted to rage against it, to explain that principles weren't for sale at any price, but the rules of court testimony trapped him in yes or no answers that couldn't capture the complexity of choosing integrity over survival. After Devin stepped down, Rebecca called Victoria to the stand. She looked smaller in the witness box, more vulnerable, every inch the struggling single mother rather than the powerful CEO. Rebecca walked her through her concerns, the pattern of Marcus minimizing Jasper's conditions, the times he'd been unreachable during medical emergencies, his refusal to communicate about medication changes or doctor's appointments. "Ms. Cross, why are you seeking emergency modification now after months of this custody arrangement?" Victoria's voice shook but held firm. "Because I finally have proof. Because Devin documented what I've been seeing all along but couldn't prove. Because watching Jasper struggle to breathe Sunday night while Marcus insisted he was fine made me realize I'd been prioritizing peaceful co-parenting over my son's safety. I can't do that anymore. Jasper deserves a father who takes his health seriously." If Marcus can't be that father, he shouldn't have unsupervised custody. Marcus's lawyer tore into her on cross-examination, painted her as a workaholic who'd hired a stranger to replace actual parenting, who couldn't maintain stable childcare for more than 3 months, who was using one incident to punish Marcus for their failed relationship. Victoria held her ground, refused to be baited, kept bringing the focus back to Jasper's medical needs. Then Marcus took the stand, all polished confidence and wounded father righteousness. His lawyer lobbed softball questions: how much he loved his son, how he'd never intentionally put Jasper at risk, how Sunday was simply a misunderstanding about symptom severity. Marcus performed beautifully, voice breaking at exactly the right moments, eyes wet with what might have been real emotion or might have been calculation. I would never harm my son. Jasper is everything to me. Yes, I made an error in judgment Sunday. I thought he was managing his symptoms adequately. I was wrong. But one mistake doesn't make me an unfit father. Victoria has made mistakes too. Hiring unvetted childcare, allowing male strangers to live in her home around our vulnerable son, prioritizing her company over her child for years. If we're evaluating fitness, let's evaluate both of us honestly. Rebecca's cross-examination was surgical. She walked Marcus through the timeline Sunday. When Jasper first showed symptoms, how many puffs of the inhaler he'd used, why Marcus hadn't called Victoria or sought medical attention. With each question, Marcus's story developed inconsistencies. First he'd thought Jasper was fine, then he'd been planning to give him the nebulizer at home, then he'd assumed Victoria would handle it when they got back. The contradictions stacked up like evidence of exactly what he was: a man who prioritized his own narrative over his son's well-being. Mr. Brennan, you testified that Jasper is everything to you, yet you returned him to his mother 90 minutes late, in respiratory distress, without proper treatment, and with an empty rescue inhaler. How do you reconcile that claim with those actions? Marcus's composure cracked slightly. I made a mistake. I've admitted that. But Victoria's using this to punish me for leaving her, for not being the perfect father she demands, while she's allowed to be an absent mother who works 80-hour weeks and outsources parenting to hired help. The hired help being Devin Carter, who has kept meticulous medical records, administered all medications on proper schedule, recognized warning signs you missed, and potentially saved your son from an ER visit through proper intervention? He's been there 10 days. I'm Jasper's father. Being someone's father is a verb, Mr. Brennan, not just a noun. It requires action, not just biology. The judge called a 30-minute recess. Devin found Victoria in the hallway, pacing, hands shaking so badly she couldn't hold her phone steady. I can't tell what she's thinking. I can't read if we're winning or losing. You're not losing. The evidence is on your side. Evidence doesn't always matter in family court. Bias does, perception does, and Marcus is very good at performing concerned father. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. What if I lose him? What if the judge decides I'm unfit because I work too much and I have to watch Jasper go to Marcus full time? He'll stop his medications, tell him he's weak for needing them, turn him into some broken version of masculine that doesn't allow vulnerability or fear or need. Devin caught her hands, stilled them. That's not going to happen. You heard Rebecca tear apart his story. You saw the judge's face when she watched that video. She knows what's happening here. You have to trust that truth matters. The judge returned, face impassive, holding a legal pad with notes Devin couldn't read from this distance. I've reviewed the evidence, heard the testimony, and considered the emergency nature of this petition. Here's what I see. 2 parents who both love their child but have fundamentally different approaches to his care. 1 parent who overmanages and one who undermanages. Neither approach is inherently wrong, but when medical complexity is involved, the margin for error shrinks considerably. Devin's heart hammered. Victoria had gone completely still beside him, barely breathing. The incident Sunday evening troubles me deeply. Not because Mr. Brennan made an error in judgment, all parents do that occasionally, but because his response when confronted with that error was dismissive rather than concerned. A parent who can't acknowledge when they've put their child at risk is a parent who will repeat that risk. Additionally, the pattern of delayed medications and minimized symptoms, while not individually actionable, creates a concerning picture when combined with Sunday's events. Marcus's jaw tightened. His lawyer started to rise, then sat back down. However, I'm also troubled by the speed with which Ms. Cross has integrated new household help into her son's life, and by the financial entanglement between that employee and her custody case. This creates questions about judgment and boundaries that warrant examination. Devon's stomach dropped. Victoria's hand found his under the table, gripped hard. Therefore, I'm ordering the following. Custody remains joint with Ms. Cross as primary physical custodian. Mr. Brennan's parenting time is modified to supervised visitation pending completion of a parenting course, focused on medical care for children with chronic conditions. Upon successful completion of that course and demonstration of proper medication management, we'll revisit unsupervised visitation. Additionally, I'm ordering both parents to attend co-parenting counseling to improve communication about Jasper's medical needs. Any future modifications to medication or treatment plans must be communicated to both parents within 24 hours. She looked directly at Victoria. Ms. Cross, I'm also recommending that you establish clearer boundaries between your employment relationships and your personal life. Your childcare arrangement with Mr. Carter may be perfectly appropriate, but the optics create complications. Consider them carefully. The gavel came down. Marcus's lawyer immediately objected, requested emergency stay, argued supervised visitation was excessive. The judge denied it all, firm and final. Marcus stormed out without looking at Jasper, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Victoria collapsed against Devon in the hallway, her whole body shaking. We won! Oh my God, we won! You won! Jasper won! Devon held her while she cried, aware of Rebecca's knowing look, aware of every courthouse worker who passed them and saw exactly what the judge had seen. Two people whose relationship had become far more complicated than employer and employee. Back at the penthouse, Mrs. Walsh had both kids fed and happy. Jasper showing Zara his collection of superhero figures while explaining their various powers. When they saw Victoria and Devon, Jasper's face lit up with hope he'd probably been afraid to feel. What happened? Do I have to go back to Dad's this weekend? Victoria knelt down to his level, pulled him into a hug. No, baby, you get to stay here. Your dad is going to take some classes about helping kids with asthma, and when he's done, you'll see him again. But for now, you're with me. Jasper's arms wrapped around her neck, his small body going limp with relief. I don't want to go back there. He scares me when I can't breathe right. He says I'm faking it for attention. I know. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you better before, but I'm protecting you now. That's my job, keeping you safe, even when it's hard, even when it means fighting your father in court. You are my priority, always. After Mrs. Walsh left, after both kids were settled with an afternoon movie, Devon found Victoria on her balcony staring at the city. He brought her tea she didn't ask for but accepted anyway. Rebecca wants to talk Monday about the judge's comments, about boundaries and optics. Victoria's voice was carefully neutral. She thinks I should find different childcare, someone without the financial complications, someone whose testimony wouldn't look like I'd bought it. Devon had known this was coming, had felt it building since the lawyer's cross-examination. She's right, I've complicated your custody case enough. The 2 weeks are almost up anyway. You can find someone permanent, someone whose presence doesn't create questions about your judgment. What if I don't want someone permanent? Victoria turned to face him, her eyes intense. What if I want you, not for 2 weeks, not as temporary solution, but actually part of Jasper's life? Victoria, I know what you're going to say. That it's too fast, too complicated, that I'm confusing gratitude with something else. But I'm not confused, Devon. For the first time in years, I'm seeing clearly. You've shown me what it looks like to put Jasper first without apology. You've taught me how to be present, how to set boundaries, how to fight for what matters. And somewhere in the middle of that, I fell in love with who you are. Your integrity, your strength, the way you parent Zara with this fierce, gentle devotion. I don't want to go back to how things were before you. I want to build something new. Devon's chest felt too tight, his throat constricted. You don't love me. You love having help. You love having someone who makes hard things easier. That's not the same as loving the person. Don't tell me what I feel. Victoria's voice turned sharp. I've spent 40 years being told what I should feel, what I should want, who I should be. I'm done with that. I know what I feel. The question is what you feel. Because if this is just a job to you, if you're counting down the days until you can go back to your normal life, tell me now. I'll find different childcare. We'll keep things professional, and you'll leave with your loan and your daughter's medical care covered. But if there's any part of you that feels what I feel, if you've been lying awake at night thinking about what this could be if we let it, then say so. Don't make me brave alone. Devon thought about Simone, about the promise he'd made to take care of their daughter, about whether falling in love again counted as moving forward or leaving behind. He thought about Zara asking if he was allowed to be happy, about whether happiness was something you earned through suffering or something you chose despite it. He thought about the way Victoria looked at him like he was someone worth seeing. The way Jasper had started calling him Mr. Devon with the kind of trust that suggested safety. The way this penthouse had started feeling less like a job site and more like a home. I'm terrified. The words came out rougher than he intended. I'm terrified of letting myself feel this because if it doesn't work, if this falls apart, I'm not the only one who gets hurt. Zara gets hurt. She's already attached to Jasper, already asking if we're staying, already drawing pictures of our two families becoming one. And if I let myself love you, if I admit that when I look at you I see someone I could build a life with, then I'm gambling my daughter's emotional stability on something that might be temporary. So don't make it temporary. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Devon could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could smell her perfume mixed with the courthouse anxiety they'd both been marinating in. Make it permanent. Not today, not rushed, but intentionally. Date me. Let me date you. Let's figure out if this thing we've built in crisis can survive in normalcy. Let's see if we can be partners in parenting and partners in life. People will talk. You're bored, Marcus. Everyone who sees a black janitor with a white CEO and assumes I'm using you for money or you're slumming for charity. Let them talk. I spent 20 years caring what people thought and it made me miserable. I'd rather be happy with you and criticized than lonely and approved of. Victoria's hand came up to his face, fingertips gentle against his jaw. I know this is fast. I know it's complicated. I know all the reasons it shouldn't work. But I also know that you're the best thing that's happened to me in years, and I'm done pretending I don't want more than a 2-week employment contract. Tell me what you want, not what's smart or safe or appropriate, what you actually want. Devon's hand covered hers, held it against his face while he tried to find words for the tangle of fear and hope and possibility in his chest. I want to wake up and not feel like I'm drowning in debt and exhaustion. I want Zara to have stability and medical care and a childhood that isn't defined by her father's financial terror. I want to feel like I'm building something instead of just surviving. He paused, made himself look directly at her. And I want you. I want whatever this is that we've started to become. I want to see if temporary can become permanent, if crisis forged can become real. I want to be brave enough to try. Victoria's smile was the most genuine thing he'd seen on her face since they'd met. Then try. Stay. Not as my employee, as my partner. We'll figure out the logistics, the boundaries, how to make this work for both our kids, but stay. Devon kissed her because words felt insufficient. because her mouth was right there and he'd been denying himself this for 10 days of growing certainty that she was someone worth the risk. She kissed back like she'd been waiting for permission, like she'd been holding her breath for this exact moment. When they broke apart, both of them breathing hard, Devin rested his forehead against hers. I need to talk to Zara first. Make sure she understands what this means. That it's not just temporary work anymore. She gets veto power. If she's not comfortable, we go slower. Same with Jasper. He's been through enough upheaval. If this is going to work, both kids have to be on board. They talked to the kids after dinner. Both children sitting on the couch looking between the adults with the particular wariness of kids who'd learned to brace for bad news dressed up as good. Devin started, keeping it simple. You know how I've been staying here to help take care of Jasper while Miss Victoria works? The 2 weeks are almost up. We're supposed to go back to our regular life. But Miss Victoria and I have been talking and we think maybe we'd like to try something different, something more permanent. Zara's eyes went wide. Like we stay here forever? Not exactly forever, but maybe for a longer time. See if this, all of us together, works not just for 2 weeks but for real. But only if you both want that. This isn't something we're deciding for you. This is something we all decide together. Jasper looked at Victoria, then at Devin. Would you be like my dad or just Mr. Devin? Just Mr. Devin. You already have a dad. I'd be someone who cares about you and lives here and helps take care of you. Like family, but not exactly the same as your dad. Like a bonus dad? Jasper's face brightened with the concept. Riley has a bonus dad. His mom remarried and now he has 2 dads and he says it's pretty good most of the time. Victoria's voice was gentle. Would you be okay with that? Having Mr. Devin and Zara here not just for visits but living with us? Jasper turned to Zara with deadly serious 7-year-old negotiation face. Do you hog the TV? Only sometimes. Do you share your Legos? Most of them. The special ones are mine. That's fair. I have special art supplies that are mine too. Zara looked at Devin, then at Victoria. If we stay, do I still get my room at our apartment, in case I need space? Devin's chest tightened with love for his daughter's careful boundary setting. Yeah, baby, we'll keep our apartment. This doesn't erase our old home. It just means we have 2 homes now. Okay, then I vote yes. I like it here, and Jasper's pretty nice for a boy. You're pretty nice for a girl. Jasper looked at Victoria. Can they stay, Mom? Please? Victoria pulled both kids into a hug, tears streaming down her face. Yeah, baby, they can stay. The logistics took weeks to sort out, Devin giving notice at both his jobs, negotiating a new position as cross-industries facilities director at an actual salary with benefits and respect. Victoria restructuring her schedule to be home for dinner 5 nights a week, learning to delegate and prioritize and remember that companies could function without her constant oversight. Both of them navigating co-parenting with Marcus, who'd lost the custody battle but not his determination to make Victoria's life difficult at every opportunity. 3 months in, Devin was still learning the contours of this new life, waking up in Victoria's bed instead of on her couch, drinking coffee together in the morning while the kids got ready for school, attending board meetings as her actual partner instead of the help pretending to belong. The whispers followed them everywhere, at Jasper's school pickups, at company events, in the grocery store where they shopped together like an actual family. Some people saw a gold digger and his benefactor. Some saw a white woman's charity project. Some saw exactly what they were. 2 broken people who'd found each other in crisis and built something real from the wreckage. Zara's specialist appointment in May went better than Devin had dared hope. The cardiology consult showed her murmur was stable, possibly improving. Surgery unlikely for at least 5 years. The doctor scheduled routine monitoring, adjusted her medications slightly, and sent them home with cautious optimism that felt like winning the lottery. Devon cried in the parking lot while Victoria held him and Zara patted his shoulder, saying she'd told him she was going to be fine. Marcus completed his parenting course and regained supervised visitation, every weekend monitored by a social worker who documented his medication management and symptom recognition. Jasper came home from those visits less anxious, reported that his dad was trying harder, actually listening when he said he needed his inhaler. It wasn't perfect. Marcus still made passive-aggressive comments about Victoria's parenting, still undermined her decisions when he could, but the visits stopped being medical emergencies. Small victories counted when you were rebuilding trust atom by atom. 6 months after Devon had first offered to help a desperate CEO in a late-night crisis, he stood in that same corner office watching Victoria present the finalized merger to her board. She commanded the room with confidence that came from knowing her worth, from having someone at home who saw her as human instead of just competent. Marcus sat in the back, arms crossed, but couldn't find legitimate grounds to object. The vote passed unanimously. Afterward, Devon met her in the hallway, both kids in tow. They'd started bringing Jasper and Zara to company events, refusing to hide their blended family like it was something shameful. Zara held up a drawing she'd made during the boring grown-up meeting. 4 people holding hands under a rainbow, hearts scattered everywhere, our family written in her careful second-grade handwriting. "What do you think, Mr. Devon? Does it look like us?" Devon looked at the drawing, at his daughter's hopeful face, at Jasper already asking if they could stop for ice cream on the way home, at Victoria watching all of them with the kind of joy that came from finally understanding what mattered. He thought about Simone, about how she'd told him once that love wasn't finite, that you didn't run out just because you'd given it to someone who died. He thought about dignity and courage and the difference between surviving and actually living. "Yeah, baby, it looks exactly like us." That evening, after the kids were in bed, Devon found Victoria on their balcony. It had become their space for hard conversations and quiet moments, the place where they'd first admitted this was more than temporary. She stood with her back to the railing, watching him approach with the particular expression that suggested she had something planned. "I've been thinking about the judge's comments, about boundaries and optics and what people think about us." Devon's stomach tightened. They'd been so good, so stable, 6 months of building something real. He wasn't ready for her to decide appearances mattered more than substance. "What about them?" "I think she was right. We do need clearer boundaries." Victoria pulled a small box from her pocket, the kind of box that made Devon's heart stop completely. Not the boundaries she meant, different ones, like the boundary between partner and spouse, between living together and actually committing to forever. She opened the box. Inside sat a simple platinum band, no diamonds, nothing flashy, just solid and real and clearly expensive in the way that spoke to permanence over flash. "I know this is backwards. I know traditionally the man asks the woman, but I'm 40 years old and I've spent enough of my life following traditions that didn't serve me. So I'm asking you, Devon Carter, if you'll marry me, not because it makes sense to other people. Not because it's been the right amount of time or we've checked the proper boxes, but because I love you. Because you're the best father I've ever seen, because you taught me what it means to have principles that don't bend when life gets hard. Because I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to be as brave as you are." Devon's throat closed completely. He looked at the ring, at Victoria's hopeful, terrified face, at the city spreading out behind her, full of people living smaller, safer lives. He thought about taking the risk, about trusting that this woman would keep choosing him even when the novelty wore off, even when crisis turned to routine, even when people whispered and judged and questioned whether they belonged together. "Say it again." Victoria's face broke into understanding, recognition of the moment she'd demanded his vulnerability and now offered her own. "I love you. I want to marry you. I want Zara and Jasper to be siblings, not just friends." I want to build a life with you that looks nothing like what either of us planned, but everything like what we actually need. Yes. Devon pulled her close, kissed her hard, tasted salt from tears he wasn't sure were hers or his. Yes to all of it, to marriage and family and building something that matters more than what people think. Yes to being brave together. The ring fit perfectly. She'd measured one of his other rings weeks ago, planned this with the same precision she brought to merger negotiations. They stood on the balcony holding each other while the city lights flickered below. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate disasters and somehow built something worth keeping. Inside, Zara called out that she couldn't sleep, needed water, needed her dad. Devon went to her room, found her sitting up with her pulse monitor beeping its steady rhythm. She looked at his hand, at the ring catching lamplight, and smiled her gap-toothed smile. "You said yes, didn't you?" "How did you know she was going to ask?" "She asked me first, last week. Wanted to make sure I was okay with it." Zara patted the bed, invitation for Devon to sit. "I told her yes. I told her you needed someone who saw you the way Mom used to see you. Like you were important. Like you mattered." Devon pulled his daughter close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo, feeling the steady beat of her repaired heart against his ribs. "You think Mom would be okay with this? Me marrying someone else?" "I think Mom would be happy you're not sad anymore. I think she'd like Victoria. And I think she'd say you're allowed to have new love, because love doesn't run out just because someone dies. It just makes more space." Zara pulled back, looked at him seriously. "That's what you told Jasper, remember? About loving people differently when they're gone, but still loving them? You have to believe it about yourself too, Daddy." Devon kissed the top of her head, marveling at the wisdom contained in 7-year-old bodies with surgical scars and heart monitors. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just notice more now because you're not so tired all the time." 18 months after Devon had walked into Victoria's crisis with nothing but desperation and integrity, they stood in a small ceremony at the courthouse, the same courthouse where they'd fought for Jasper's custody, where the judge had looked at them and seen complications instead of family. This time they stood before a different official, surrounded by their small, chosen family. Zara in a purple dress holding a bouquet, Jasper in his first real suit serving as ring bearer, Mrs. Patricia Walsh crying happy tears, Rebecca Chen, the lawyer who'd witnessed their beginning. Marcus wasn't invited. He'd contested the engagement, argued it created an unstable environment for Jasper, petitioned the court to intervene. The judge, same Judge Morgan who'd heard the original custody case, had shut him down with finality that suggested she was done with his attempts to control Victoria's life through legal system manipulation. Jasper's therapy reports showed improvement, his anxiety decreasing, his relationship with both parents becoming healthier. Evidence of actual well-being mattered more than Marcus's objections. Victoria wore cream instead of white, simple and elegant, and so different from the power suits that had been her armor for years. Devon wore the suit she'd bought him, properly tailored this time, fitting his shoulders the way clothes should fit when someone loved you enough to notice the details. They exchanged rings and vows they'd written themselves, promising not perfection but effort, not certainty but courage, not easy love, but real love, with all its complications and contradictions. "I promise to choose you every day, even when it's hard, to be your partner in parenting and building a life and figuring out how two broken people can make something whole together. I promise to see you, not just the CEO or the mother or the woman who needs help, but all of you, the scared parts and the strong parts and everything in between." Devon's voice caught on his vows, on the enormity of promising forever, when temporary was all he'd known for years. "I promise to love you with the same integrity I try to bring to everything else. To never let you wonder if you're enough, because you are. You're more than enough. I promise to parent our kids, both of them, like they're the most important thing, because they are. And I promise to keep being brave with you, to keep choosing risk over safety if risk means actually living. Judge Morgan, attending as a guest rather than official, raised her glass at the small reception afterward. I'll admit I had my doubts when you two first appeared in my courtroom. The speed, the complications, the financial entanglements, it all looked messy. But sometimes the messiest things are the most real. You've proven that families don't have to look traditional to be functional. They just have to be built on truth instead of performance. Congratulations on choosing truth. That night, in their home, no longer Victoria's penthouse but theirs, redecorated to include Devon's furniture and Zara's art and evidence of actual living. Devon found both kids asleep in Jasper's room, curled up together under a blanket fort they'd built from every pillow in the house. Zara's pulse monitor beeped softly. Jasper's inhaler sat on the nightstand within easy reach. Two medically complex kids who'd found each other and decided they were siblings regardless of biology or paperwork. Victoria appeared beside him, her hand finding his, their wedding bands catching hallway light. Think we did okay? I think we did better than okay. I think we built something that matters. Devon pulled her close, rested his chin on top of her head. I think Simone would be proud. I think your former self, the one who cried in her office because she couldn't figure out how to be both a mother and a CEO, would be amazed at who you've become. I couldn't have become her without you showing me how. You gave me permission to be imperfect, to need help, to prioritize the things that actually matter. That's worth more than any business success I've ever had. They stood in the doorway watching their children sleep. Two people who'd stumbled into each other's crises and somehow found home. Outside, rain started falling. Soft and steady, nothing like that first desperate night, but reminiscent enough to feel like coming full circle. Devon thought about the stranger he'd helped in the rain, about how sometimes the right thing looked like the wrong thing until you were brave enough to try it. About how dignity and courage weren't about never being desperate, but about how you handled desperation when it came. Love didn't replace love, he'd learned. It built on it. Simone would always be part of him, part of Zara, part of the foundation that made him someone capable of loving Victoria with his whole complicated heart. But there was room for both, room to carry the dead forward while building something new. Room to honor the past while choosing the future, room to be more than one person making 1,000 impossible choices and calling it survival. This was more than survival. This was life. Messy and complicated and nothing like the plans he'd made when he was 25 and thought he understood how the world worked. This was better than plans. This was real.